So anytime our people are spending time doing something, we've got to understand the ROI of that labor expense. And for us, actually, with the help of Gallagher and Josh a few years ago, really set out on understanding how much we were spending watering cattle, how much productivity loss we were experiencing with our cattle because of water proximity and amount of waters per pasture systems. And we quickly learned that we were the implementation of a little more advanced watering systems really had a really strong ROI for us that we could really make sense in terms of what our labor cost was. And
Hey, I'm Shay Keister, and I'm your host for the Casual Cattle Conversation podcast, where we talk about all things related to ranching by connecting you to peer ranchers and industry leaders to improve the profitability of your operation and your lifestyle. Now, if you are looking for a community of ranchers, sign up for my monthly Rancher Mind events. Rancher Mind events are mastermind events for ranchers. You join a Zoom link and you sit down and have a conversation with other ranchers and industry leaders about specific topics that help you improve your operation and face the challenges that we face as an industry as a whole. Now, if you want immediate ranch management advice, go to my website, casualcattleconversations.com/newsletter, and sign up. When you sign up, I will send you a free PDF with 22 ranch management tips from the ranching gurus who have been on my show and poured out their knowledge for all to hear. With that, be sure to follow me on Facebook and Instagram by following Cattle Convos. You can connect with me there, or you can go to my website, casualcattleconversations.com, to find anything you may need. I'm excited to meet you, and let's get on with the show. Well, to start off, thank you both for being on the show today. I'm excited to have you on here and to connect with our listeners. So what I would really like to do is have each of you introduce yourself. So Kyle, would you please start and talk about what your role in the beef industry is today?
Yeah, sure. Well, thank you for inviting me to be here with you today. I'm really looking forward to the opportunity. My name's Kyle Mayberry. I'm Director of Agriculture for the Biltmore Company in Asheville, North Carolina. I know some of your listeners may have varying knowledge of the Biltmore. It's certainly a large tourist attraction in the southeastern United States. Biltmore is the largest home in America. Was founded and built by George Washington Vanderbilt and opened its doors in 1895 to really establish this oasis country estate in the mountains and Blue Ridge Mountains of North Carolina. We keep that legacy alive today. We're 8,000 acre property that of course still houses that massive home that is the center focus of our business. And then my role at Biltmore is the Director of Agriculture. We have a very diverse agriculture operation. We're a cow-calf producer. We're a Berkshire pork producer. We're a Dorper sheep producer. And then we're also in the row crop business pretty extensively as well. My role up and above agriculture involves the natural resource management, some of our pollinator habitats, a lot of different aspects. And then, of course, a big part of it is agritourism. At Biltmore, we have around 1.7 million guests coming onto our property every year. And so we get a really unique opportunity to engage our guests about the food that they eat, how that food's produced, and tell that story in a really fun way. And then, of course, we have America's most visited winery. We have several, nearly 100 acres of viticulture, and we grow a variety of grapes where we produce wines here on the property that our guests get to enjoy. So that's the big picture view of some of what we do.
Sounds like you have your hands full with a lot of diversified, livestock species, but just diversified ag in general. So that's pretty cool, and I'm glad to have you on here. How about you, Josh? What's your role in the beef industry today?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Shay, for having me today. My role is with Gallagher Animal Management. I'm the territory manager for North Carolina and Virginia. My role specifically to beef is helping producers with their livestock fencing needs, as well as their livestock watering needs, as well as their scales and weighing needs. Also, EID is included in that. I'm fortunate enough to work with producers like Kyle here who we have today, but all kinds of producers, from small to big, from commercial to purebred. So.
Well, awesome. And for those of you listening today, we're going to talk about watering systems. So I'm excited to talk about that and gain both of your perspectives. And so we know that fresh water is really important to cattle and how they perform and just their overall animal health. But what's one of the main challenges you see producers face with their watering systems, Josh?
So one of the main challenges I see is convenience of watering, for one thing. How they're currently doing it, whether it's hauling buckets out to every day or using a little float valve in a Rubbermaid tank. So convenience is a huge factor that plays into your watering needs on your operation, as well as, simple quality of life. What do you want to spend your time doing? Do you want to spend your time hauling buckets or hauling tractor buckets full of water out to the field? Or would you rather be doing other things that you may view as more important? So I think that's about it. I kind of rambled there for a second, but.
No, I think you really hit the nail on the head there, because it does matter kind of on what your operational goals are, how much time you have, and what's available to you in your environment. Kyle, would you talk a little bit about kind of how your watering systems are set up and what that looks like on your operation?
Yeah, sure. So we're like a lot of beef systems, especially in this part of the world, and Western North Carolina, Southeast in general, where we have predominantly a cow-calf operation. We are unique, and I'll talk about the uniqueness a little bit and why maybe we have taken the approach we have in watering systems. We are an 8,000 acre property. We have cattle at the furthest point of each of those boundaries of that 8,000 acre property. And so water infrastructure, time to get to those pastures. There are a lot of constraints that we have to consider. Certainly don't have water lines ran to all these different areas at certain points. And so there's, various aspects of challenges with water, but what I guess we know in terms of conventional beef systems, we are a family farm. We're still family owned and operated, but we are, of course, our family's not really involved in the day-to-day labor aspects of our beef business. So labor is our biggest cost. We're in one of the toughest labor markets in part of Western North Carolina. And so anytime our people are spending time doing something, we've got to understand the ROI of that labor expense. And for us, actually, with the help of Gallagher and Josh a few years ago, really set out on understanding how much we were spending watering cattle, how much productivity loss we were experiencing with our cattle because of water proximity and amount of waters per pasture systems. And we quickly learned that we were the implementation of a little more advanced watering systems really had a really strong ROI for us that we could really make sense in terms of what our labor cost was. And there's so many ways we can look at watering systems, the economics of it, the cow comfort aspects of it. And so we set out on this journey to really understand that and really understand the economics of what we were doing.
So do you want to talk a little bit more? You said you looked into advanced watering systems. So how did that look different from what you were doing before now that you've made those changes?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. So, previously, like I said, we had a lot of cattle on the periphery of this property. And our property can take, as much as an hour to drive across while staying on the property because of the way the property is set up. And we have one of the largest rivers in this part of North America that runs right through the middle of our property. So we have one bridge. So if you can need to be right across the river and have to go all the way around the part of the property. But we had previously been using tank waters that we were filling up with a water truck daily, twice daily, depending on the system. And then, we're in the mountains of Western North Carolina. Winters are certainly not near as harsh as you all experience in the West, but still, have certain decent amounts of period of freezing weather, where we won't get above freezing for 7-10 days at a time. in the worst part of winter. And so the wintertime, we were spending immense amount of time, busting water buckets, tanks, trying to keep those waters those cows access to water. And so when we really did the math, we had around 2 positions that worked for us that were watering cattle. And that's whether that meant taking tanks to waters, whether it meant busting waters, whatever that meant. There were two full-time positions, but that's all they did was water cattle. And I don't know if anyone else experiences what I experienced, but labor is not getting any cheaper. And so we really started looking at the math of putting in these MiraFounts, and it quickly turned out to be one of the best ROIs we've done in our program. And there were several considerations, not just the labor efficiency, but the cow comfort, or how we could form grazing systems that made a lot more sense, and a lot of aspects that have really, in the last 2.5 years, I think, Josh, you might know better than I think we put in 37 MiraFounts, and so now we have we don't have a water truck anymore. We don't we depend completely on those the Miraco products to deliver water to the cattle, and we don't have to bust waters. Those Josh, I'm sure, can give you a lot more specification, but those waters don't withstand our conditions, and it's just saved immensely on labor. It saved immensely on what we can allocate our team members to spend their time doing, and has really increased our cow comfort, really increased our cow productivity leaps and bounds, and has been a win from every vantage point we've looked at.
Well, that's exciting to hear. So, Josh, would you go into a little bit more detail about how those fountains work and how they're a little different and more efficient?
Yeah, so there are energy-free and energy-efficient models. In our mine and Kyle neck of the woods, we primarily use the energy-free. We don't have harsh enough winters for most folks to utilize heaters really at all. And Kyle, only being an hour and a half from me, he's quite a bit colder during the winter than I am, being in the mountains. But basically all it is a tank built up with 4 inches of insulation, rockite material on the outside. And it's just a simple valve system on the inside that operates once the water declines. The valve opens up and fills it back up. And the Miraco tanks utilize a ball system that pops out of the hole, so the cattle know that there's water in there. As a producer, there's water in there. That's an advantage of a ball system, as you can see from a distance, that there is water in the tank. So that's one of those quality of life factors I was talking about earlier, is that from a distance, don't have to physically walk out to the tank, that there is water there. But and Kyle said something that he does not have to deal with his freezing up, but I should point out that you should consider the number of animals on one tank at a time. If you're planning on pulling animals out of a paddock, you do need to have appropriate numbers on the tank, depending on the size of the tank. We've got them 33 gallons, 10 gallons, 70 gallons. But you do need to have the appropriate amount of animals on that tank to keep the water moving through it so it doesn't freeze up in sustained low temperatures, which we don't deal with a lot in our territory, but you would, more so your neck of the woods. But they run on a water line that runs below the frost line, ran out to each individual tank. Then it comes up through a 4-inch pipe inside of the tank that is surrounded by water, which greatly reduces the chances of freezing. So it's very simple.
Well, that's exciting to hear how well it works in your part of the country. Now, that energy efficient one that is a little more resistant to the heat, have you had producers have good luck with that in the colder climates?
Yes, absolutely. So they'll run on a low level heater that would stay in the tanks during sustained low temperatures. You wouldn't need to keep it on all the time, but sustained low temperatures, keep it on, and it's going to keep your water from freezing. And with your cattle mixing in and out of there, have no trouble at all. To speak to you specifically, we've had several feedlots in that neck of the woods that have moved to the tanks in the last couple of years, because saving water has become more of an issue within our society and today. So we've had more and more feedlots move in that direction. They're having great luck with it versus the continuous flow that's always been used in those operations.
Well, that's nice to hear. So, you've both hit on quality of life for the producer and quality of life for the animal with fresh water and saving time and that ROI. Are there other benefits that producers are seeing from implementing these fountains?
Yeah, absolutely. Depending on their operation, they can greatly expand what they're doing with their grazing plan or their grazing management plan. In our neck of the woods over here, a lot of people are utilizing NRCS and USDA programs to fence out their streams and creeks and move to this system, which cleans up our water quality as well as provides cattle greater proximity to water and reduces parasites on your animals as well, without them drinking out of bodies of water and drinking out of these tanks instead.
Well, awesome. Thank you for sharing that. So these tanks, are they set for cattle can drink out of two sides, or what does kind of geometrically, if someone's trying to visualize it, what does that look like?
Yes, ma'am. Depending on the size of operation, we can get a 1 ball and we can do double-sided. We can do up to 6 balls, which would be on 3 balls on each side. So yeah, depending on the size operation, it's going to depend on how many balls you got. If you're going to split a fence, obviously you're going to want balls on both sides. If you're splitting paddocks. If you're just wanting it in a small couple acre lot, 1 ball would be sufficient. 2 ball, it really just depends on your operation and what your plans are for that operation.
Okay. So Kyle, I've got another question for you. What was the reaction to your employees once you upgraded this watering system? How did they take it, the people who were out there day to day handling this?
Yeah, so it's certainly very positive feedback as we were. I guess the only negative feedback is they wanted to do it quicker. we were putting in a lot of waters across a lot of property. It was a 2-year process for us to make that happen. So once they had the taste of freedom, they hated to have to water anything. And so especially in the winter, I mean, it's Shay, you have no doubt worst winter that we're we just complain out here. But in the winter it's harsh. It's harsh conditions to be out there busting waters. Our team immensely cares about the cattle they care for. They want them to have access to water. And we don't have to go through all the benefits of why we need water for cattle and have that access, more than just a couple points during the day. And so they care about what they do. And so spending that time in a different way to where that's a check off the list already, that was pretty rewarding feeling. We to Josh's discussion about different types of MiraFounts that are available. We have, I don't know if we have every one that they make, Josh, but we have several different kinds.
Quite a few, yeah.
several different SKUs of that product. We've got some of the 6 balls where we have divided fence. We have some of the energy efficients that do have heaters. We do have a little bit of everything. So what my team has found, anytime you implement change, there's a little hesitation because our conventional water systems, I say they're easy to work on. They're pretty simple that they just water flows through them or we fill them up with a tank. There was a little concern of how complicated are these things going to be, that sort of aspect. But we found that these things, I'm in no way a plumber and I fix MiraFounts frequently in my role. And so it's something, that, and by fix them, I say we have one overflowing or something like that. Sorry, Josh, didn't mean to say we were fixing it.
You're actually out fixing something, Kyle.
I'll tell them to get a picture next time so you can see. But, when we have to control the flat flow and the valves on them and stuff, they're incredibly simple to operate. And so that's been, certainly well received. They're not complicated pieces of equipment to fix. They're very simple in their design and very user producer friendly units. So that's been, that's certainly one of the big advantages for us, because anytime we have a big property with a lot of different departments, water lines being hit for different different reasons and stuff like that. So it's nice to be able to get those flows figured out really quick and train every team member, not just have a couple team members that know how to do it. So that's been, that's been really rewarding for us.
Well, Kyle, I have 2 things to kind of say back to you. One, yes, our winters are harsher, but I can tell you right now, I am an absolute wimp when it comes to heat and humidity. So it's there are 2 sides to that story. But
I'm ready to move in your direction after the last couple of weeks we've had here. So,
but also kind of getting back to the main point of the conversation, I appreciate you saying that they're easy to fix, because that's something that we see. Ranchers have to be jacks of all trades. I mean, even if they have hired men or whatever it may be, like, yeah, they're not just managing the genetics or managing the grazing. They're the electrician, the plumber. They have to be able to do a lot of things at any given point. And it's nice to be able to fix things yourself and simply, because, we hope everything runs smoothly, but odds are something's going to break or need to be updated at some point. So I appreciate you saying that. As we move forward with this, do either of you have anything else you'd like to add about watering systems today for those listening?
Josh, if you want to go, the one thing I think that I maybe haven't hinted on a lot for us, but in our neck of the woods, obviously forage utilization is probably the highest priority, because obviously land resources are I say labor is the most costly, but I work on a property that we've owned for 125 years. So we're not having to acquire land. Land's available to us because we've had it for a while, but certainly utilizing that land in the most efficient way, getting the greatest yield and utilization of our forage is certainly front and center and top of mind. And that's, I think, the other big win that we've had with the implementation of these watering systems is being able to create grazing systems that increase our forage utilization, where in the past we had one large tract of land that was considered one pasture. They may have had one water tank at the fence because that's where the guys could fill up a water tank at. And now that water tank is two water tanks, and they exist in the middle of those pastures. The cattle we're mimicking the cattle's behavior. They're going to the water, they're going back to shade in the summer, and in between is where their forage is. And we've seen as much as a 30 to 40% increase in forage utilization, to where we were really trampling, stomping that forage that was the furthest distance from those water tanks was never really getting traveled to, because the cattle were just too heat stressed for whatever reason. It's just too far out of their path. And so now we're able to capture a lot of that forage utilization. Obviously, we're doing management intensive grazing here that we're keeping those cattle in a pretty intensive system in terms of how we graze them, but that forage utilization and those water systems have made that possible. So.
Well, thank you. Josh, do you have anything else to add before we wrap up today?
I was going to touch back on him talking about how easy they are to use and easy to work on if there is a problem. And, I would encourage producers, farmers, ranchers, that if it is a little intimidating to them, to reach out to somebody like me that is a professional. I mean, me and Kyle talk. I have his team, most of his team's number. They'll text me questions, text me, what do they need and that sort of thing. But I'd encourage folks out there that aren't sure or intimidated to reach out to either a rep like me or a territory manager like me or a producer like Kyle that has experience with these, and just ask questions, because they really are simple. And if you're looking for something to improve your operation, it's not as hard as you may think it is. So.
Well, awesome. Thank you very much. And I'm sure, I know there's information on this on the Gallagher website. And so I will be sure to include that in the show notes and the social media links. So thank you both for joining the show today. I appreciated hearing your experience and insight when it comes to watering systems.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you, Shay.
And that's a wrap on that one, folks. Thank you for tuning in today and joining in on the conversation. Be sure to take this a step further and take the advice you learned and implement it on your operation. If you want to have a conversation about it, head over to my social media and send me a DM by following @CattleConvos and connecting with me there. Have a great day.